Welcome to today's market recap. This is Christian Fromhertz, Tribeca Trade Group, with again your market recap. So, just quickly, the indices, not much to really talk about today. I would say chop, and I think this is pretty good. We had two central bank meetings that we got through today. The Bank of Japan, which made some more statements about inflation and kind of moved the goalpost a little bit. And then Draghi spoke, which was overall pretty dovish, not really looking to shock the markets with any major move. So, markets just kind of consolidated, which the markets do this, right? I mean, we consolidated a couple days and moved up. So, I think this is pretty good if you're bullish. I think things are probably still getting to the point where we're getting, we've had a lot of green bars in a row. So you begin to think, of course, when the market ebbs and flows, we're kind of getting to that upper, you know, not ready to roll over, but it seems like we're getting kind of to an upper ridge at this point. I'll go over earnings. One of the I always like to talk about the negative first, but Amazon just comes out and kind of destroys another couple companies today. I got lucky with this trade yesterday. I don't know, maybe lucky or maybe a little bit wise, but I tried Home Depot. I was in August 11th, a call spread, and just didn't like how it was reacting the last couple days. I played it on the bounce of the bottom of value and was thinking that maybe we could get to the top at value at least. And the last couple days here, it just kind of stalled out, and I didn't like how the 50-day moving average was kind of set in as an umbrella. So I got out of Home Depot yesterday, so I got really lucky with this. Again, I just didn't like what the price reaction was doing, and it wasn't doing what I expected it to do. So a real, I'll take it. A nice miss on a day where Home Depot went down 4% and broke decisively the value area. Maybe the 200-day moving average is next. Same thing with Lowe's. Lowe's got smoked, broke below the 200-day moving average. So I think Home Depot can fall further. I really do. And I did not even try. I know some traders that like to try, on a big move down. They think it's an overreaction. Let me just remind you what happened to Costco. If you thought Costco was an overreaction, it's still reacting to the Amazon Whole Foods deal, and a lot of people thought this was an overreaction. Costco even came out with their monthly numbers a couple weeks back, which were awesome, and they're still moving down. So I'm not ready to even look at a Home Depot long trade. There's other things that I would really rather concentrate on that I think are much more positive. So do I think it's a shame and an overreaction for Home Depot? Yes. Do I want to go in and buy? No. We have the blueprint of this from Costco and a couple other names that have just gotten obliterated. All right, so that's the bad. We'll talk about the earnings after the close. I was really thinking that today was going to be a huge day for me to put on some earnings plays. Um, I looked at a bunch of these names a couple hours before the close, and I said, you know what? I'm not doing it. These names have run too much into earnings. So Visa is up a little bit after hours. That's a good sign. For the most part, don't get me wrong. All the earnings reports, not all, but Visa was good. Microsoft was an awesome report. They are higher. I put on a very small trade in Microsoft. The name that I really liked on the chart setup, unfortunately, did not work out, which is fine. I like to talk about things that did not work and not just straight winners. But I thought the chart looked pretty good. It just popped above the value area today. So sometimes, as good as something can look technically, maybe it's, of course, it wasn't cheap, but just crossed over the 50-day moving average a couple days ago. Of course, it was up 2.2% today, but Skyworks is actually coming back here. But I did put on a long play that expires tomorrow for Skyworks, which, unless it comes all the way back, the numbers for Skyworks were not bad. I think they were complaining about margins, but a beat on the top line and on the bottom line. So the price reaction just tells me that things maybe have just run into earnings a little bit too much. Look at ISRG, also had a good quarter. There's a good example of ISRG. You look at the price history. The last time that Intuitive Surgical reported earnings, the stock was at 761. and then moved up and just kept going, did not look back. But I mean, you're talking about what, 761 to 971? That's what, a 30% gain since last quarter. So it's just difficult to think that these numbers are that a name that's gone up 30% since the last quarter is going to continue, with such a pace that it's been on before. So the numbers were great for ISRG. So maybe this might end up being a buying opportunity if you kind of let things settle in a little bit. But it looked to me like the numbers were really strong. eBay had decent numbers too, and they're down. So again, you look at an eBay chart, and it's made a huge run the last week or so. So 52-week high today. A lot of these names that were reporting earnings today had made 52-week highs today. So, if it was 2 weeks ago, and the names reported the numbers that they did, I think you would see a huge pop after the close for a lot of these names. But you always have to kind of foot the price, where the price is now in respect to where it's been. And it kind of makes sense why some of these names just are not blowing out to the upside, because they've already run a bit. All right, so I think I covered that in enough. What interests me today, if I can think of the right symbol, look at the PowerShares media portfolio. So look at this breakout today and the last couple days, the last, 1, 2, 3 days. What a move here in media. So you start to think about this. Oh, well, it could be all Netflix and PBS. It is a media ETF, and Netflix is a media company. But you look at the components, Netflix is the number one weight, but it's only a 5.6% weight. So it's not a dominating weight in this ETF. There's other things going on here. Of course, Google's in here as well. But you start to look at some of the option activity that we saw today. So I started a Disney trade today. I am long the 110, 115 call spread. I think real nice support. So this one's not extended, and you got really nice support. These are what I call easy setups. Why are they easy? Because you know exactly where to get out of them when they don't work. Also, CBS also saw some calls being bought versus puts being sold. I like this chart as well. So a couple nice things here that are a little bit, maybe, they're big names, but maybe a little bit off people's radar, as the momentum names have really kicked up the last 2 weeks. Other names that saw, there was a few orders that really kind of caught my eye. HPE, I did take this trade. Hewlett Packard Enterprises, it's been moving up and retracing some of this move that it had for earnings. Seems like it's done this a couple times for earnings. This happened as well back in February. Price action reacted really bad to its quarter, and it made its way all the way back and actually above there. So it kind of seems like history might have a chance of repeating here. Big move down for earnings, and it's been clawing its way back. Claw. So, sorry, it's been a long day. This was HPE, both January and November calls. I went after January. I'm looking for longer term plays at this point. I'm looking to get out of some of my August exposure, or the majority of my August exposure, and just look for longer dated positions. There was some Facebook, Amazon, and Google call buying a little bit further out. Small number of contracts, but still big size option plays considering the price. Grubhub I thought was interesting. Part of the grub was a roll, but this thing never got about. Thank you, valuaries, for not getting me in this trade, because it never broke out. So 4604 is what you want to watch for the rest of the week. And then the valuary for the month looks like it's just above there. So I think as long as it gets above 46, call it, you can see this is a developing valuary for August. I'd watch that 46 and maybe go long Grubhub. But I think part of the order for Grub was a roll. Another order that I thought was really interesting was Splunk. Splunk, we've been seeing now a couple times. We've seen some call orders. These were 5,000 of the September 70 calls. So a little bit further out. It doesn't report for a little bit. So this is one you don't have to worry about for earnings. And I like this chart. I did not take this trade because I just don't want to take everything that hit the tape. DHI, home builder that we saw call buying in a couple weeks, and look at what DHI did a couple weeks ago. Seems like it's kind of a pennant flag at this point, or excuse me, maybe a pennant pattern. These patterns have been doing pretty well. You just have to be patient and let them work their way through. But it did look like they're purchasing more of the January 39 calls. HOLX, this trade I'm already in. I believe that they added to that trade in HOLX. I have to check open interest tomorrow to confirm, but August 50 calls. I really like this chart, and I said this when I got into the position. Whoops. So this is a medical device company. You know, nice uptrend here, and it's not too, just kind of based off the 50-day moving average. I'm just in an August position, but so I would like this thing to move sooner than later. But I'm trying to be patient and looking for a move to the top of value, which is about 46.20. What else do we see? I already talked about Disney. We did see call buying in Disney. ETP, another call buyer in the MLP space. I believe this trade went up mid-market, but I think it was bought. So I talked about ETE yesterday. I've talked about AMLP. I did start a position in ETE today in cash, one of the MLPs, just above the 50 and 200-day moving average. Micron's short-dated calls went up. Qualcomm. So here's a good way to kind of how I judge option activity. You know, as I'm going through trades that I like. So this was a trade that's on my list. I think they may have unwound some January 60 calls today and rolled them out to June. Not 100% certain on that one, but you could see a lot of these calls going up on the bid side, and they rolled out long term. So why don't I like Qualcomm? Or why am I not going to play Qualcomm? Because the price is underneath the 200-day moving average. No, thank you. So is it notable? Sure that they're going that far out and they're, you know, if they're picking up long-term calls. Sure. But I would rather avoid this name until it gets back above 59.16. So no thanks. So a great way to kind of, I think a good example of looking at aggressive option activity and then using your own system and being picky and choosy and saying which names are not going to work in your trading plan. No, thank you, Qualcomm. Do I think it's got support back here? Sure. But I don't want to mess with a name that's on an uptrend. Not my style. All right. There was also, I will say, SMH, the semi ETF. We saw some puts that went up last week. Now actually there's a couple bullish trades in the semiconductor ETF. Love it. September 88s and September 90s look like they were both purchased for the semiconductor ETF. Love it. TLT, also some put. TLT was strong. I like the technicals in TLT, but somebody just came in and put down a big chip in terms of thinking TLT goes lower. There was also some other notable trades on the put side. I apologize. I don't have one in here, the one that I wanted to go over. SIG. This name works pretty good on put activity. Signet Jewelers. Do I not have it in here? I guess I really don't have it in there. It did react to this as well. Look at the chart at SIG. Great name, I think, to short. You know, it's been in a downtrend, but it's rallied a little bit. Maybe it continues lower here below that 50-day moving average. Here's what I mean in terms of this. The put buyer went up right here. So it did come in, I think, a name to watch. And if you're looking for shorts, you know, if you have a lot of longs and not too many shorts, this could be a name to look at on the short side. All right, so thanks for watching tonight's video, and you know, get some R&R in tonight, maybe a cocktail or two. It's been a long week of earnings. These weeks always tire me out when there's so many names that report earnings. By the time I get to Friday, I'm done. So thanks again for watching. Have a great night. Relax a little bit tonight, and see you back early in the trading room. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.